So I've finally been able to find a little bit of time to carve out so that I can talk to you all about what's been going on in my fiber arts. So if you don't know me, I'm a registered nurse, and I've been teaching nursing students for the past 10 years, which basically makes my free time very, very limited, especially during the academic year. So now that it's June, I have a little bit more time to be able to sit down, regroup, and recenter and refocus what my original goals for the year were, especially with relationship to my fiber arts. I started my fiber arts when I was about 5 to 6 years old, and it was my grandmother who taught me. She first started me crocheting, and once she felt like I knew how to do that, she then advanced me to knitting. And my grandmother was a perfectionist when it came to her fiber arts, so she would routinely find mistakes in my project and would force me to frog. So in the beginning, I was really excited about the whole process of learning how to turn yarn into a wearable garment, but then I slowly became very frustrated and discouraged because of all the frogging I was doing. I was actually becoming more of a frogger, an expert frogger, than an expert knitter or crocheter. I eventually hit my teens, and when I was a teen, I really didn't see anyone else around me in school and any of my other friends knit. So it really became out of practice in my day-to-day living. So I no longer started to knit. I stopped that for a couple of decades. And then it was in my early 30s that I started up again. I am actually embarrassed to say this, but I used to be a very avid smoker. And when I quit smoking because of a health reason, I had that hand-to-mouth activity, that need to always bring my hand to my mouth with the cigarette. And when I stopped smoking, I needed to keep those hands busy. So my grandmother gave me the idea of taking up knitting again, and I did that. Well, needless to say, I made tons and tons of scarves, and I was giving scarves away to all my friends. I did a lot of scarves. I don't even know if I have any left in reserve, but I actually knitted a lot. And then after I got over that hump of quitting my smoking, I put it down again. I actually stopped because my life got busy again. And it wasn't until about 5 years ago that I started up knitting again. And really the culmination of it was when I was introduced to one of the biggest fiber shows here in the California area, which is Stitches West, that routinely comes to Santa Clara, California. And I went to my first Stitches West, I believe it was 2014, and oh my God, I felt like I was a kid in a candy store. I started touching and feeling and caressing all of those beautiful textures and fibers, and I really started to educate myself about all of the different types of fibers, because my grandmother was very limited in what she had access to. So I now felt like I was exploring all of these new things that I had not been introduced to before. And of course, with all that exploration, it also led to collecting yarn. So my yarn collection really started very strong about 5 years ago, and my stash started growing, and it was always with the intention that I would eventually find some time to sit down and knit those beautiful garments that I've been able to see in books and been able to see online. But of course, I never seemed to have the time. So this year was the first year that I started to promise myself, I made a commitment to myself. This year, I committed to invest in myself. So what this means is this year, starting in 2019, I am committing to myself that I will produce more projects. So I will knit, crochet more yarn than I actually bring into the house. So that's the goal. Fingers crossed that I will be able to do this. Now the challenge is, because I haven't knitted in a while, I have to be reteaching myself. Now my grandmother taught me how to knit the Portuguese style. And that's when the yarn is around your neck or around knitting pin. And the only person that I have been able to find online or in conferences as a resource has been Andrea Wong. So she's the only one that I have seen out there that guides a new knitter, through that Portuguese style. And of course, my grandmother no longer is with me, so anytime I find a pattern that's a little bit more challenging, I don't have anyone to really tap into. So the purpose of this channel is for me to capture my learning process of relearning how to knit the Portuguese way, and to also relearn how to crochet. So it's been a while and I have forgotten some of the key steps on how to crochet too. So I've read somewhere that to become a master of any skill set, one needs to have at least 10,000 hours. So this is really my progress to attaining those 10,000 hours. So the purpose of this channel is to bring you along in my knitting adventures. So I will be sharing any challenges that I have encountered in knitting the Portuguese way, any new stitches that I'm learning, any new books that I'm purchasing or resources that I have encountered, and anything that intrigues me in relationship to the fiber arts. So hopefully you can join me for this adventure. And the other thing that I also would like to commit to is to sharing a quarterly report with respect to my stash. So what that's going to look like is every quarter I will share with you how much I've brought into the stash and how much I've actually worked up and has found its way out of the stash. So the goal is to be able to knit more or crochet more than I'm actually bringing into the house. Come and join me in my adventures.